What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm about to be joined with my guest, Danielle Rama Hoffman. Now, Daniela is a divine transmitter and scribe of ancient and innovative wisdoms for the purpose of elevating consciousness and inspiring personal growth. She is a leader in the shift into unity consciousness, living from joy, purpose, and prosperity. Now, she's also the author of 2 books, The Temples of Light, and her newest release, The Council of Light, Divine Transmissions for Manifesting the Deepest Desires of the Soul. Danielle Rama Hoffman, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, thanks for coming on today. Yeah, and I believe you're in France?
Yes.
Yeah. How long have you been in France for then?
It's 3.5 years now.
Right, because you're American, I'm guessing?
I am American, yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, for me, one day I want to move to America, so I always find it interesting when Americans have come to other parts of the world. What's the story behind that then? Partner, or it was just where your calling was, or?
Yeah, both. My husband's German, and after 16 years in the States, he was really missing Europe, and we'd taken vacations to France and actually had our astrocartography done of, like your astrology chart and the best places to live on the planet. And for us as a couple, southern France was in the top 3, and
wow.
So twist my arm, here we are.
Absolutely. Okay, very interesting. Family there much? Is it more family on his side, or much from your side, or?
No, not so much family, although we have now horses and mules and cats and a soul family.
A soul family, most
Yeah.
definitely, most definitely. Um, yes, and that's what this book is all about. The Counselor of Light, Divine Transmissions for Manifesting the Deepest Desires of the Soul. Manifesting, okay. How did this all start for you to begin with, though? What was your awakening process?
Yeah, well, my awakening process was really, I think I set it up before for myself in past incarnations. I went to a horseback riding camp when I was 9, and at that same camp had lightning go through me twice. And then the women that owned the camp ended up being my Reiki teachers. And yeah, so it was kind of this evolution and process where I just kept saying yes to one step. And I remember I was in massage school and just having this sensation of light and colors and not really aware of guides. And then I took a workshop with Sekhmet, the Egyptian goddess, with Nikki Scully. And that was really my first reintroduction to the Egyptian pantheon and my connection with Thoth, Toth. And being directly connected to him was really how I met the Council of Light, which is who this book is divinely transmitted through. So one series of yeses after another, and of course, also my own personal challenges side to the gifts. Being intuitive. That when I was younger, that was really overwhelming to be as empathic as I am, and now it's amazing contribution to me and to my life and to others.
And is there anyone else in your family that's got these gifts at all?
Yeah, it's interesting that you ask that because if you'd ask them, I bet they'd say no. And yet I think that we all really do, just in different ways.
There's always one. There always seems to be one other member of the family that's actually got this gift, or it's come in, or there's a generation, a couple of generations behind somewhere, someone's hiding that gift as well, and it's just carried on with yourself.
Yeah.
So you sort of very, we've briefly touched the awakening process there in a sense, but then, what was there any sort of material that you was sort of into that was helping you get into this? Well, I know you don't like the word channeling, but into this receiving mode that you're in, into this conduct as a vessel that you are in a sense.
Yeah. Well, it really was an evolution of, I went to massage school and taught massage and then got into energy healing with Reiki. And I think that, both of those are techniques in really being a conduit. And then I started working with Nikki Scully and alchemical healing and received my direct transmission through her into the lineage of Thoth and started taking people to Egypt. And really, after that process, I went from teaching other people's work, which I'd done for years because I think I started in 1993. So however many years that is now. And then that after that, that's when I started bringing in bodies of work direct through meditation, through source. And so I think I'd been channeling energy for a while, and then it was later that the words came through. And I noticed with other people that I was working with, because, for example, the alchemical healing technique, it works with the Egyptian pantheon as guides and the elements of earth and air and water and fire. And I had this group of peers that we'd get together and practice. And so I just noticed how each one of us had a different way of connecting. And for me, it really shifted. I found it more direct for me to be connecting directly and speaking than saying, well, Toth is saying this or, so how long has that been now? Maybe it's been 12 or 13 years that I've really been divinely transmitting. And it always evolves. I was thinking about that before our conversation today, since the book came out in 2013 and more of the Council of Light members have stepped forward, and it just keeps evolving, I think, as we all evolve.
Yeah, and that truth will keep changing as you're making up new ideas about what it is, and I think they'll give you free will to allow you to do that. I know that sounds weird because you think there'd be an ultimate truth. This is it. This is how it works. But I don't think it's even like that. I think there's something big. It's bigger than that. It's different to that. It seems to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to tune in now, what is that process in a sense? I mean, would you go through meditation to tune in, or would you just quiet? Is there do you walk through a door? I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah, well, again, it's been an evolution. So I think, at different times it's unfolded differently. And yet for me right now, if I just take a moment and tune in, and then that's it. So I'm happy to do that if that's the direction that we go in.
Well, no, I mean, it's just, for other people that think they've got the same gift, which we all do, don't we, really? It's just how finely tuned you are and how much practice you're going to do it, and is it your life calling, which we'll talk about in just a moment, life calling. Yeah, that's it. So it's yeah, because you've been doing it for so long right now, it's a pretty much an easy process for you to tune in. How much trust it goes into that when you connect? Is there a lot of trust?
Yeah, I think that the trust develops. I don't know. I don't know. It's an interesting question because I do see that when I work with clients, for example, to bring in their unique body of work with source or with their guides, and whether that's scribing a book or something like that, that I notice for them that there is that. Like, can they trust what's coming through? Are they making it up? All those kinds of things. And, I guess I've just built upon so many experiences of following the guidance that it's I don't know, and maybe too that I'm more intuitive and not so much left-brained, although I can be highly detailed. If it feels right to me, or it feels like, yeah, that makes sense, then I go through it. So I don't know. It's an interesting question because I know that I must trust because I get the guidance, and then I choose to implement it, and I've been doing it for years. So that is trust, and yet it feels more like a knowing. Where trust is, it's like if there's trust, there's distrust, and then also I've built the relationships, and so it's like having a really good relationship with a friend, or somebody that you've known for a long time. So there is that discernment process, perhaps, and there are certain frequencies and vibrations that are compatible with my system and the people that are drawn to the work that comes through me, and other frequencies that aren't compatible. And so I think that's also important to say that, I'm just not open to anything. I think of myself like a key, and that we're all keys, and then kind of there's that custom lock of configuration, whether it's beings of light or people, places, and experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as well is, possibly you don't come from that space because you just don't care what people think anymore, neither, and there's less and less ego as every time you've done it. Do you know what I mean? Probably there's very little ego I think we've all got a bit of ego in us, but I think when you're doing work like this, it really has to be stripped away, and there has to be the least resistance there possible. Otherwise, you're not going to go out there and use it for the benefit of others, are you? Because you won't want to be seen to be having this gift, because it can be, that ego side can make you ridiculed at quite a bit, can't it? To, be having this ability that, is coming from somewhere else that we call home, and other people, that will see you for the first time will maybe not come from that space that we even continue. So to them, it's quite laughable in a sense. But actually, once they've had a reading with yourself, they realize, how does she know that?
Yeah, and that is interesting that you bring it up in that way, because I think simultaneously what creates that strong connection, it is an individualized oneness that I really had to get stronger almost in my identity. And then as that identity or signature energy got stronger, I felt like I was able to connect more deeply. And then in that process, I did go through a lot of that fear of being killed or losing love or ostracized, or, after having this amazing divine transmission afterwards, I would feel like I'd done something wrong. And I think that I see a lot in others, and that's also what I really specialize in helping others with, is to know that that'll be there, but just to keep going anyhow. And then, yeah, then it becomes less and less and less and less. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that I just, fell off the apple cart not caring what other people thought, but I think that that's part of the collective consciousness or the tribal consciousness, the old paradigm that sets it up that to be separate from source and to say, well, I've got a direct connection to source as a being of light incarnate. That really does bring up all those old programs and fears and persecution and all that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because for those going through a process of awakening now and having the abilities or these gifts, for example, like channeling or receiving or however we want to personify it, that's just a bit of benefit to them, just to know, just to keep going, and don't give up, because it's so easy to give up, and they will keep coming through, and there will always be signs coming through to tell you that, listen, there's a connection that you've got, you need to continue it. And you have to listen to those signs sometimes. But, there's nothing forced, if it's when you're ready to do it.
And I think also in the unique way that each of us has, and that it may look a certain way for me or for you, and for each person. I think that sometimes a lot of the work that I do too is helping people to be who they are full out. And that idea of being who we are full out, then it can bring up that sensation of trying to be something that we're not. And it's really that being who you are full out. So it may look like divinely transmitting the counsel of light for me, and for somebody else it may be their gut instinct, or they get chills or they have tears when truth is present. And to really begin to identify a dictionary of signature symbols or signals, like when I bring them in, when you're asking me, I feel it in my abdomen now, that there's kind of this core strength that gets activated, and then the vibration as well. So there's ways that we're, especially as we become more multidimensional, to go beyond not only the feelings and the emotions and the body, yet to be accessing more of those capacities that we have as multidimensional beings. And then that really supports the process.
Most definitely. And with the Council of Light, do you feel that when you connect with them, that this is quite a high level that you're connecting to? If there was, a whole range of infinitive levels for the soul to progress onto, not just 1 to 12 when we pass on to, but almost infinitive, that where you're connecting it, these light beings, they are quite high in the order of things. Or
Yeah, it's an interesting.
evolved.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because I was thinking, the book, The Council of Light, came out in 2013, and so how have things evolved? And when I first met the Council of Light, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of them that came forward, and it was so overwhelming. I was like asking for a representative. And then in the Council of Light work that I brought in with them, it was really the awareness that each of us has our own unique Council of Light, and that they have members from different galaxies or star systems or the multiverse, and that some frequencies may be compatible with my system, those representatives that wouldn't be compatible with somebody else. And so the idea that we each have our own unique Council of Light, really, to me, that just seems to fit, because there are frequencies and vibrations that for me as a soul and this incarnation, it's not that there's anything wrong with them or they're higher or lower, yet it's just not what's mine to be and do and have. And when you're talking a little bit about the free will and that piece there, what came to me is that I do see that it is a vibrational proximity, that there has to be a vibrational proximity. And as the earth stars evolved, that there are frequencies and vibrations now that I think we can access on earth that I don't think were possible before. So I am seeing new Council of Light members coming in. I am seeing frequencies and vibrations that seem higher, and that they can exist even while there is so much duality and multi-dimensionality, because we can all just Jupiter and Pluto and the Earth and the star, the sun and the moon can all be in the same solar system. Now there's more frequencies and vibrations that can be here. So that's how I would say it. And yeah, to me, it feels really amazing. So I guess that would be evolved.
Yes. I mean, yeah. Yeah, it's difficult to put into words what I'm trying to say because what we're talking about is, are quite difficult. But we're using human words here for what you're bringing through from a reality that's beyond our understanding, or our current understanding. But it feels to me that if there was a hierarchy level, that they're actually from higher levels than even where we initially cross over to. When we cross over, they're beyond that level.
Yeah, and it is really an interesting way to think about it because I think, like you said, it's challenging for us to think about without some context that we're coming through. And so to have the awareness that there's that origin, that you mentioned, that Earth isn't our home, and so then, well, what is, and where do we originate from, and that there are different civilizations or origins. Like recently, there's been some Path of the Venus Light beings of light that have come through as a part of the Council of Light, and as I've been connecting with them, the idea of not being who we are full out, it's just not a part of their awareness. Like if they're Olympic athlete, they just show up being an Olympic athlete every day. And so this kind of stuff that we can go through of playing small or holding back or trying to share the gifts and all that kind of stuff, that their experience isn't like that. And to me, that's one of the things that I love about it, is that it is being together with beings of light that have a completely different context or origin energy. So to be connecting it to that energy where there's no such thing as worthy or unworthy, for example, then that it gets transmitted. And so the origin is what comes to me when we talk about that. Where are the beings of light and where do they come from, and what are our origins?
Yeah, it's almost like they're trying to find their way back. We all are, aren't we? Back, and evolving to something grander than even. So as the soul crosses over and goes back home, it's almost like there's infinite levels to go to, and we're trying to evolve to those higher levels. And maybe in those higher levels, there's realities just like this. That we can go to as well, but from a different stance. It's not as painful as this particular reality is. I mean, because this one can be quite a tough one, can't it, on planet Earth? I always say as well on many shows, that's not to ignore that it's so important to be in the moment now, because you chose to be here, and actually being here is the most empowering thing you can do, rather than wanting to get lost in where we go to. But I think what you do and what a lot of books do that I've come across is they bring through teaching information from that side, and to embrace in the life now and make now happier, better, more joyful, more empowered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that really is one of the purposes of the Council of Light, is to enhance joy, the vibration of joy, not the emotion of joy per se, yet the vibration of joy. And I do think that we have a unique vantage point too of being on the Earth Star and being incarnated beings of light and collaborating or having these divine partnerships, the support of the Council of Light, for example, and that is an amazing thing. I brought in a body of work this year called the Divine Light Activation, and it's a 22 evolutionary sequence. And the first evolutionary sequence, when they came in, was really about evolving the hierarchy of relationships and having a revolutionary connection to relationships, and that it is all based on the space of equanimity, and that we come together eye to eye, peer to peer, divine to divine, and that really, even if they could activate the divine light activations, for example, that it's a partnership, that we're here And so what we do here also has a contribution to the larger evolution in consciousness. So I think that's pretty cool, and I especially found it really amazing, just that awareness that yes, we're here, and yet we, I think, came here for a reason as pioneers or innovators to also be kind of receiving the football of consciousness when it gets tossed to Earth Star.
Yeah, no, most definitely, most definitely. And what do you think they feel, or have they given any indication, or have you asked about where the current state of the world is right now? What do they feel about where we are, and especially with the most recent terror attack in France, attacks in America, uprisings, and this is just the beginning. I feel of a massive change that's going to take place. This is just the beginning. What do they? Do they have any opinion on that, or would they just think of us as doing it the most difficult way always? And they're coming through now with the information that to try to bring about some change with the information that they've brought through, or do they just not care?
Hmm. Yeah, I haven't asked them directly that, and at the same time, there's other conversations that I've had that I could see kind of perhaps what I could imagine that their perspective might be. And that whether it's a slower vibration or a higher vibration, that at its base, it's all energy, and that things are just becoming more transparent, that it's all always been there, yet now there's a greater transparency to it. And, I can also see that as us accessing more of our gifts and talking about it in a different way, as the way that you brought it forward, but just that transparency that there isn't any longer the motivation that gets hidden or the masks that we used to have, that it's just more transparent. Yeah. And I think that goes back to what you were asking earlier about, do I trust? And there are just more subjects that are my preference or my kind of lock and key, and that genre doesn't tend to be, what I focus on or what I ask about. Although I do think that it's all a hologram, so if we go into any point of it, it accesses more. It accesses the whole.
And that's interesting what you've said there, because I think what you've said before as well, in the sense of some of the teaching information coming through most recently that didn't take part in the book that's come prior now, in the sense of relationships and the way we treat each other. If we came from more of that space of what they're saying, probably, which is, love and, seeing each other as family, and just to have more of that conversation with each other, then the world would be in a different place. If we treat each other as though we are one, we wouldn't have these issues now. So I suppose that your teaching is teaching individuals that some of this process, which can only go out there and ripple, really, and maybe that's what you do. You don't try to change the world, you change yourself, and by changing yourself, that changes those around you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, and I do think, the Native Americans talk about 7 generations, in our ancestral lineage when things shift. And, I also like to think of that on the soul lineage level of what we're being and doing here now. How does that contribute to 700 years from now, or 7 lifetimes from now? Or because I do think that Earth has a role in this larger evolution in consciousness. And my sense of it too is, as the vibration on Earth shifts, and as there's more light that comes in, then that which is moving more slowly comes to the surface, like a pond that, as it's cleaning itself, the muck comes to the surface, and yet just to keep letting it flow through, that it's a part of the cycle. So yeah, I joke about that sometimes with my husband. If I'm in a slower vibrational emotion, it's like, oh, I must be bringing in a lot of light today. because it has to work that way. And, I guess now that we're getting into it a little bit more deeply, what they do talk about is using separation consciousness or the slower vibrations as rocket fuel for unity consciousness, for the evolution in consciousness. And so, since it's been, I don't know, 25 years or something that I've been in the quote unquote healing arts kind of professionally, I do see a shift from that there used to be a lot of clearing and trying to get rid of stuff. And now it's more about including it into the wholeness, so that if there is fear, there is anger, that it becomes more like a drop in the ocean rather than a drop of food coloring in a thimble. And from my experience too, I think a lot of people, they've cleared and they've cleared and they've cleared and they've cleared and they've cleared, and then they just keep clearing, clearing. And what if rather than clearing, we complete paradigms? What if rather than clearing, we really utilize that raw energy into the alchemy of our greater evolution?
Well, that's again interesting because the book, the information that you've brought through here, it's the manifesting the deepest desires of the soul, and you really have got to get in tune with yourself and lay your cards bare on the table, I think, to find that deepest desire of the soul. What have you found from the teachings that you've done, and with obviously the information that you brought through? How do you really access what the soul is asking for, or what it came forth to experience? How do you, if for someone watching this or listening to this now, how do they start that process?
Yeah. It's bringing me back to one of the first bodies of work I brought in, and it was about the soul and soul body infusion. And, so there's different programs that I brought in about connecting to the soul, and that it really is this language of communication, just as it is connecting with the beings of light. And so how is it that we communicate in a language that perhaps we're learning together? I see that when people are accessing their intuition or their divine guidance, of, well, how does a being of light, or how does the divine guidance or the intuition sound? And then discovering that language. And so sometimes it can be simpler in some ways to ask, questions that may be a little bit less emotionally loaded or invested, of just, if you were connecting to your soul, what is it that it would, out of these 3 shirts or these 3 apples, which one? And that may seem very physical, like, well, why would the soul have a preference about what one might wear, what one might eat, yet just as that idea of opening up communication. And I guess for me too, as I really have that direct connection with Thoth or Thoth, the Egyptian god of infinite knowledge and keeper of the Akashic records and scribes, that to me, the way that I access the soul is by going into the Akashic records, the records of the soul's incarnations, and then asking questions. It's almost like a tarot reading where the different records come through. And yet for some people watching, it may be that they get a dream, or there's a symbology, synchronicity that keeps showing up. I do think we can use our life, what's happening in our life, as also those symbols of the soul. And I think even though it seems kind of like, well, how do we do that? I think people know more than they realize that they know. So it may just be taking the time to say, well, what are those whispers that I've been ignoring for so long? Or what is the sense of why I'm here? And what are the themes that have to do with that?
That's so, yeah, you mentioned dreams there as one way of, bringing forward information about what the soul's trying to get through to you, what it wants to experience. I mean, let's just, you are the soul. It's just, this is one way of you yourself getting through to yourself, while you're still in, it's just, it sounds a bit strange, but I believe dreams to be one way through if you're resistant to really putting the time into be true to yourself and try to figure out what it is that you would love to do as purpose. Now, not everyone's going to want to do this. Not everyone's going to want to go in that space and find their purpose because they're busy. They've got kids. They've got a house to look after. They just wanted to get through the day happy. They're maybe they've whatever issues they're working on. Whether it's relationship issues they've got, whether they've just become single, whatever it may be. Do you know what I mean? That day-to-day things that are happening. They're never going to ask these questions. Personally, for me, I think the reason you ask what your purpose is or what you came here for to experience, what your soul wants to experience, is when you have had an awakening process. I think when you look for purpose, that's a sign that you have awoken and you're not going to go back to sleep. Personally, because otherwise you just don't look at these subjects, do you? I mean, you just don't. I could bring many people in this room right now just off the street that I'm going to that would say, well, I've never considered that. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just struggling to get through day by day. But there are many that I do speak to as well who are looking for this purpose. And I can say that I've discovered my purpose, and that came through a dream. One of the most powerful dreams that I've had for a very long while. So I now know what my purpose is. I've been looking for it for a long time. But, I'm just... for people coming across this for the first time, or maybe have had thought about this, but it's never come to them, all I can tell you is that when you are awakened and you are ready, it comes through in different ways. It does.
Yeah, I think that I've just been so much about my purpose for so long that it's hard to imagine not asking those questions. But I think you're right. There are a lot of people that don't. And yet, I do think that there are people that may call themselves spiritual, for example, and those that wouldn't, and some that wouldn't really carry a lot of those qualities that I think the spiritual are looking for. And so I do think, and I see this a lot, especially with the men, because it's been mostly women for so long, at least in the work that I've done, that the percentage of women has been really higher, and yet there are these potent, powerful men that show up, and then it seems like this almost to instantaneously, like it's not necessarily years and years and years, yet even if somebody wouldn't call themselves spiritual or haven't been looking for their purpose per se, I do think that it can be something that then once it starts, everything before had purpose. Everything in our lives, I think, does have purpose, whether there's awareness there or not.
Well, all I can say from my own perspective is that the purpose that I now know where I'm going to go in the future is nothing that I'm doing now in one sense. In one sense, it's not quite. But it is because what I'm setting up in the background now, business-wise, is going to give me the money to do that purpose. So I see the connection with it just there on a simple level. And it also, what I got from when I had that dream was that everything you're doing now is the journey to the purpose. So the purpose is now a journey, and you're on the journey. And even when you've got the purpose and still doing it, that you'll still be on that journey. And maybe once you've defined your purpose and actually doing it, then maybe you'll create yourself anew, and there'll be something grander that you'll do in the future once you've attained that. Who knows? But that's just the way I see it. Now, obviously, your book's got the word divine transmissions in there, and just so I've got this right, what are divine transmissions in the sense, and how to how do you activate the divine transmissions for yourself then, or is that something you would come to see you to do, or is that something we can do ourselves from reading the book?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of still back with where you were a second about the purpose, and that being that a lot of times we think of our purpose as our career, what we do, and a lot of what the Council of Light shares is that it also just really is who we are and our vibration, our frequency, and that I'm also seeing that a lot, that there may be people that they don't have books or they're not teaching or those or radio shows or whatever, and yet they're retired, they're grandmas, and yet they're still accessing consciousness and being it that really is a part of the purpose. So I just wanted to add that about, I don't think that living our purpose is something that is, I think it's kind of inevitable that we are inevitable when it may be different lifetimes, but I do think everything has led up to it. And in terms of the divine transmissions, one of the ways that they really work, and I have a lot of people tell me this when they read the book, is that they'll just feel the energy in their hands, or they'll have tingles, or there'll be some kind of a transmission, and that the origin of the transmission is really those that it's in response to our asking, in response to our calling. And so I think that there's a simultaneity in receiving and transmitting, and that even though the conversations with the Council of Light may seem like they're transmitting and we're receiving, that there's a simultaneity of transmitting and receiving, and that the conversation's interactive even when somebody's reading the words on the page. And so the divine transmissions really are a vibrational transmission that then invite us to be connected more to ourself as source or as divine. And so the divine transmissions can be accessed through the book, and also directly. For example, in the Council of Light, there's the rays of light that we can work with, the emerald ray, that is the U ray, or the rainbow ray, that's the wholeness ray. And so then each individual can call upon those rays, can call upon their direct relationship with the Council of Light. So it just keeps going. And then I do work with groups and people individually and in person, online. So the divine transmissions can be accessed that way as well. Yeah.
Okay. Just so I've got this in my head as well, and for the audience, when someone's read this book, what would be your wish for them? How would they have grown from reading it, and what will they get from it to be able to achieve and is it mostly manifestation we're talking about here?
Well, I would say, the first half of the book is really about connecting directly to the Council of Light and meeting your Council of Light, and then the rays of light. So they become these tools that then are accessible to increase vibration and to move out of repetitive patterns, for example. And then the second half of the book is discussions with the Council of Light about health and wealth and money. And so I think that there's what each individual would get out of also really depends on what it is that they're choosing or what it is that they're actualizing. And, what you said earlier about your purpose too, and how as there is the money that's there, then you're positioned to be sharing more of your gifts and talents, or there's a greater creativity. So I guess if I personally had a wish for those that would read it, it's that they become more of who they are, unencumbered by that fear, or that doubt, or that old separation consciousness, and that there's an empowerment as a part of the process. And yet I do think that the message of the book is also about then having a direct relationship with the Council of Light and feeling more supported in that way. That there used to be such a separation between spiritual and material, and to me this is a time of really those that they're one, and that the more that we're overflowing with opulent bliss, and the more we're positioned to also be doing what we're here to be and do and have, depending on what it is that we're here to be and do and have.
And not to be, if we can't tune into what it is we're here to do, if that's the question we're asking, just going back to this as well, I've asked that question for so long, and I've only just got my answer now. I'm 38 this week. So, and there may be people older than me as well that are still asking and are not getting the answers, and younger people as well. If we can't get the answer, why is that, and what's that telling us, do you think? And that doesn't mean we should stop doing stuff or doing what we enjoy to do. Keep doing the things we enjoy to do, right?
Yes, and just as you said that what you've been doing is positioned you. There's a chapter on positioning as well, that everything that's happened in our lives up until this now moment has positioned us for this conversation right here, right now, that couldn't have happened an hour before, or it would be different if we talked again in 5 days, that there's that awareness of positioning, that everything has purpose. So I think even if someone's not consciously aware of, this is my purpose, that they've been on track with it. I think too about my husband, who he was a cardiologist, and then he became a PhD in molecular biology, and now he does timeline therapy and hypnotherapy and neurolinguistic programming, and that could seem like it's a big jump, yet his medical knowledge positioned him, the science, it's all a part of it. And that's kind of a tangible example. Yet I think we can also extend that to, for me, like the family that I chose to be born into, that there wasn't really this direct communication, that there was this kind of system of avoiding conflict at all costs, and that really developed my intuition, because I stopped listening in some ways to what my family was saying, and I tuned into the vibration of what was underneath that. And that, I think, is also one of my biggest gifts today. So I do think that whether we're conscious of our purpose or not, that our whole life has been a part of developing that. And then when there is a knowing of the purpose, it just has so much momentum. Because that's, for me, whenever I felt the fear or losing love or what do people think, it's like, well, what else am I going to do? This is the sweet spot for me. So I'm going to just keep being that.
No, I hear you. I do. And I think you're right. That is a gift that you've got to be able to go on the layer under it and look from it from a completely different perspective, most definitely. And just out of curiosity, obviously your husband's a science background. How does he take your work in the sense of receiving information from these levels?
Yeah, he loves it. We met at a Kundalini yoga camp, and so he has his own way of connecting as well. And it's been interesting because we've led tours to Egypt together, and to kind of see the different, again, the examples. It may look like one way for me and a different way for him, and then how they complement each other.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it? Life, it really is a magical thing when you look at it from that perspective. So, well, thank you for that. But yeah, thank you. Always very interesting. And with the application of the rays of light. So basically, if we just go through just very quickly, I know we've touched on it, what the rays of light are will give us once we've got to go through them, and then how would you apply the rays of light? So if someone's going to get this book, just how that would work, just briefly.
Yeah. Well, for example, one of the rays of light is light, and that ray of light really includes all the rays of light. And so that's one, too, if someone's not really sure, like, well, what ray of light do I use to have the ray of light? And, since my background really was a lot of being a practitioner of working with clients through massage and through energy work, that I often came to this point of this question of permission, like somebody giving permission to receive. And what I noticed is that people that would say no, then whenever I was around, like my hands would be on fire with the energy flowing through, and others that would say yes, they wouldn't necessarily receive. And that the ray of light really helps us to access what it is that we're kind of on the precipice of accessing. And another ray of light is the peace ray. And the peace ray creates this bubble that's an illusion-free space. And so that one's really effective, especially for people that are oversensitive or empathic, to then have this kind of energy connection and environment where they can begin to identify what their signature energy is without all the overlays of everyone else. And then there's the Venus ray, which is the ray of opulent bliss. and the emerald ray, which is the U ray, and really helps us to be who it is that we are. So there's 11 rays of light, and that they do really support and enhance and nourish different things. And then they can also be added for those that do have a practice, or while you're in conversation with someone, if there's that sensation of a certain thing, then maybe the rainbow ray, the wholeness ray, that really helps bring different vibrations together in that oneness, or the divine ray, which is that fabric of creation that everything's built from. And then I think the second half of the book too is really sweet to hear from them about health, for example. Like, I remember when I transmitted the health chapter, I even went, okay, am I going to put this in the book? Because it was like, there's no such thing as health or unhealth, or just even the question from their perspective was inherent in the duality of it. And so to, as well as money, positioning, I think some of the ways too of actualizing or manifesting so that it's with great ease. Like, I remember when we sold our house, I really wanted to sell it in a short amount of time. And so we took our cats to a hotel for the weekend and had an open house that weekend. And somebody that was walking by, their dog, who wasn't even looking for a house, and they're the ones that bought it within 2 days for more than the asking price. And so I think that's also, in terms of manifesting or actualizing, that things that were just in flow with those perfect people, opportunities, and situations that then can enhance what it is that we're here to express as well.
Interesting that. Yeah, how do you get into the flow of it? Because sometimes I just seem to manifest things sometimes, and I just do it. I've never had it happen so quickly as it's happening now, but I don't question it because I don't understand it. I don't think about it too much because I don't really get how I'm able to go in the flow myself. I just do it, and I can't really put my finger on what it is. Now maybe it's because you'll say, well, it's this space you're coming from. You're saying, you already have this. Maybe that's what I'm doing. I'm acting as though I already have it. It's not an issue. Even though I don't, but I'm bringing that energy into me. It's a bit like with Jim Carrey. He used to walk around with a check for $1 million in his pocket because he said one day he'd be able to cash that, and he acted as though in his life he had the things or the life that he already was looking for, that he was looking for, and then he brought that into himself by saying that he already has it, which is telling life that, well, yes, you do, here it is, kind of thing. Because you mentioned money as well there, and I do believe there's nothing wrong with the manifesting of money if that's the deepest desire of the soul, which for me, money is a massive thing, and I do want lots of it, but it's not for me as such a completely, yes, of course I'm going to, I want to experience it while I'm incarnated, but it's what I'm going to do with it. It's what I'm going to do with it. That's the difference, which is for higher purposes. I come from that space. I think. Do you think when you come from that space, it can? That's it. But then you see some very, you may call greedy people, who seem to have it all, and they don't come from any of this space yet. They're manifesting it like hell, and they're not using it for the best of anyone.
Yeah. Well, it is really fascinating, and that I think that money is a vehicle of evolution. It can be, and that there is also a new money purpose, that in the paradigm of separation consciousness or lack or scarcity, that money had a role in that as well. And that now that for some they're choosing more unity consciousness, that there is a new money purpose of love and collaboration, and that can be as well the way that spiritual consciousness goes out, because money touches everyone. And so I do also have conversations with beings of light that are the stewards of money, and ask about that, and that money is wanting to pool in around us and overflow, as a vehicle, just like you can put 5 suitcases in a car and then the car goes somewhere. That as money's money. And I think that there's so many overlays on money, but money's money. But just like water's water, water can carry tea, or it can carry essential oils. That money also can be a carrier of this evolution in consciousness. So, yeah, I do think that also it is a choice that has to be chosen, because some people are very much not choosing money, and then what does that bring? So what I really wanted to say is that I do think that money is also championing our soul's purpose, and what is it that money can do to help position us to be sharing even more fully that contribution.
That's so true, and yet some people who say, "Well, I am, I am coming from that space that you just mentioned," well, something's blocking them. Something's blocking them, and mostly, would you find with clients that you have, it's that they're blocking themselves with other negative tapes running in the background. They may say on the front that they're open to this and this is what they want, whatever it may be, this is what they already have. Yet there's some other tape running in the background saying, "Well, I'm not worthy, I'm fearful, I'm just, I'm not lovable enough to have that kind of money," blah blah blah, whatever it may be. But they're not aware of those tapes running.
Yeah. Well, I do think that we're the only ones that are powerful enough to stop ourselves. So that there is some kind of conflicting commitment or internal belief that creates the rub. Yeah. But the tree doesn't think, "Am I worthy to grow to be 100 feet?" It just does it.
So true. It's there you go. It just does it. It says, "I am." I am already this. Absolutely, absolutely. I would say as well, for we can all speak to the Council of Light and get to the right people in there to speak about any issues that we're having. This is what it all comes back to. You have the power to have access to ultimate knowledge that is going to benefit you, or what's best for you, without being told what to do. They'll probably more give hints of what to do, because it's free will all the time, not their destiny, it's your destiny plus free will. What would you say then, because obviously we're getting to the end of this here, what would you say is an important message, or something important that we maybe have missed out in this conversation that you'd like to add?
Well, I would really add, based on what you just said, that the connection with the Council of Light, if someone chooses, or direct with source, or whatever it is, that it happens at the level of that 50-yard line, at the space of equanimity, from the space of eye to eye, peer to peer, divine to divine. And I notice that for myself, as well as clients that come to me, that there's just something so refreshing about being with the beings of light that really respect that 50-yard line, that says, okay, let's match as equals, and that there's not going to be any of that crossing over, or that there's really just the altar of the heart that we connect from. And that's really empowering and refreshing, and then also who it is that we have to be on that space of equality. I remember someone telling me the first time they met Thoth that they just saw his belt buckle, because they were like so low down and he was so tall. And then, what are all those hierarchies that we had in place to say that God or source is up there, out there, and to rather say, well, it's a partnership, and to be engaged. And really, that's for me what I'm choosing, is divine partnership, being matched and being engaged.
Well, doesn't that say a lot what you just said there, actually, as well, in the sense that if they're willing to meet us on that level, which they are, obviously, then they view us as so important, equals, that we have the power that they have. We've just gone to sleep, or the veil's over us very heavy, which it should be, because we're not supposed to remember everything, because we're here now having this life. I think there'd be too much well, we wouldn't be having this existence as it is, or the experience as it is right now, if we knew who we truly were. We're here to remember that and to show that from love. But yes, the equalness that when we do connect to these light beings, or as you said, whoever it may be that you're going to connect with, that's where you should connect with right now. That will come present to you in that time, or when you're in that right space. That you're going to come on to an equal footing, because that's just how powerful you are, and all answers lie within that you're looking for.
Beautiful.
So, just before we finish as well, one thing I've not mentioned is the courses that you do. How can people get in contact with you, and what do you offer as well? Because it's there's more than just the book, I know, because you've been doing your teachings as well with groups.
Yeah, so they can find out more at divinetransmissions.com, DIVINE, transmissions with an S.com, and that there are different ways to connect. There's a year-long Thoth Magic Academy, which is a video a day. And then also people sometimes come to France. I have the Divine Light Activation going on, which is a 22 Divine Light Activation sequence to evolve consciousness, as well as other books and freebies and stuff like that on the website.
And just for an audio podcast, what's the actual website as well?
It's divinetransmissions.com.
Excellent. Okay, well, we've been putting that website up along with your books throughout this interview as well. And again, all books are available from amazon.com or .co.uk, depending which country you may be in. Well, I would just like to say, Danielle, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your amazing story. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I really had a fun time and loved your questions. And yeah, it's a beautiful conversation. Thanks so much.
Blessings to you.
Blessings to you.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.com, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.